Check 1 2. Can you hear my mic?
Yep.
Oh, that's better. Yeah.
Check. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Awesome. How you doing, man?
Great.
Good.
Man, I'll be honest. We just had my other business is I own a video production business with a friend, and we just shot a 15-hour day, and it was super hot. So I am like exhausted, but I'm down to have a chill conversation. So if I'm a little bit loopy, or it seems like I'm trying real hard to hydrate, those are both just facts. You know.
No,
I mean,
appreciate it.
I'm probably the only one here who's like in a good state. I didn't have anything going on today. Simon over here is up at 2 in the morning for this.
Yeah, I live in the
Simon,
UK.
where? Oh, dude, thank you. So I'm sorry. We could have
No,
done a
no,
different time.
mate, no, not at all. It's like I just said to Tyler there, like you guys are one of my favorite bands, so I was willing
Oh man,
to take the hit. So I appreciate it.
dude, thank you so much, man. Thank you guys for having. Is this gonna work? Are you guys? Do you need anything else from me as far as like audio and video? Are you good?
No, this is cool. That's top quality. Better than
Sweet.
mine.
Well,
Yeah, no, you're ahead of me for sure.
are we started? Is this one of those kind of podcasts where we're already going?
Yeah, let's jump in straight in, raw, nice and raw, unedited.
Yeah, keep it real. No, thank you guys. I usually have a nice light setup, but it's all still packed away from the shoot
Uh,
today, so we're just going.
It looks
I got a
fine.
nice little
natural.
background blur in my overhead light. No,
There
I
you
think
go.
we're fine. Nah,
So
but
Simon, you're in the UK, and Tyler, where are you?
I'm in California right now.
Okay, right on. Well, greetings to you both from Louisville, Kentucky. Many
Absolutely.
happy returns. Cheers, Simon.
Yeah,
Cheers.
thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, well, yeah, we're just gonna jump right into it. And so, for those of you who are listening and may not know, we are joined by Aaron. He's the vocalist of My Epic. If you don't know My Epic, what are you doing? No, but great band. Me and Simon absolutely love this band, and thought it would be fun to have a good little chat with them. And yeah, we're just gonna jump straight into it. And so,
Awesome. I'm
Simon, you
honored to
want to
be
take it
here.
away?
Thank you for hanging out with me.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Just out of
absolutely.
curiosity, what the video they've been working on today, is that something to do with my epic?
No, no. Although we did do a lot of the content that's been with this record cycle, like L'Oreal, the film we did, and the
Mhm.
Make Believe video, and the Late Bloomer video, and a lot of the smaller content. But no, today my partner and I just own a video production business, and we do all kinds of between that art stuff. And like we have like several large corporate clients. Today was actually for a new golfing product that a friend of mine started, and we were shooting on a golf course all day. It was super fun and super long and sweaty, but we made our day. And I got home. I literally got in the shower, grabbed a liquid IV, and here we go.
Yeah, cool.
That's what's
Well,
up.
Oh,
just jump into my epic stuff. So could you? This is basically like for me, if anything else. But I'd love to know, like, just give us like a brief overview of like the band on how it
oh, like
started.
the history of the
Yeah,
band?
if that's cool.
Yeah. So the band started my senior year of college with my brother Jesse, one of my best friends Jeremiah, and one of my best friends Maddie. And after college, after grad school, we moved to Charlotte together, and the band sort of whittled down to me and my brother and Jeremiah. And that had been the core of the band for a long time. Tanner joined our band. We signed with Face Down Records in 2008, released our first full length. And then our second full length yet was sort of got where we started getting some traction. And we released, and then we very unsmartly just put out an acoustic EP, I guess, because reasons that made sense at the time. Tanner Marita joined the band on that acoustic EP and has been in the band since. And then in 2016, Nate Washburn joined the band, formerly of Author. He's also really involved with Death Therapy and what's the metal band he plays in? You guys help me out. I feel bad. I can't think of it.
Oh man, so I might know.
Becoming the Archetype.
Right,
Jason,
right, right, right.
before he was involved in any of that. So he came in 2016. And then in the last few years, my brother and Jeremiah sort of both phased out, although we're still all very close just for, reasons of life. And so for the last 4 or 5 years, it's really been me, Nate, and Tanner kind of leading the band. And then Alex Camarena, also of Silent Planet, has stepped in as our primary drummer. So in this last, we put out a bunch of records with Face Down since 2008, and then we signed with To the Nail in 2020, and and because of kids and some health stuff, and we took us a couple years to put a new full length out last year called L'Oriella, which we're super excited about. Does that kind of catch us up?
Yeah, that's cool. So just to segue from that then, I've been looking forward to this interview just simply because I know obviously you're a Christian and Tyler's also a Christian. I actually found out about you guys through Yet, but at the time I was an agnostic, but I was quite defiant against Christianity at the time. But your music transcends all of that. You don't have to be religious whatsoever to enjoy it.
Oh, thank you, man.
It's great stuff. But I'm actually
that's one of the highest compliments you can pay us. Honestly.
100%. Well, as Tyler knows anyway, he just recommended them to someone and they're not religious and they absolutely love it. So it's really awesome. Strong music. But so being a Christian, what was your musical upbringing like?
Yeah, well, first I want to say I don't want to speak for everybody else in the band. I am a Christian. Although these days it's something you sort of want to add a bunch of caveats to, because there's so much that's embarrassing that's going on in the name of Jesus. And so I often want to jump, not because I'm ashamed of Jesus, but because I'm ashamed of what's been happening in Christianity at large. So I wouldn't want to, and I also wouldn't want to speak for the other guys. We've never wanted to be, I've always thought Christian's a better noun than an adjective. Like, we don't want people to like us because we are good and Christian. Like, we just want to be good. And we hope that integrity of the music and the art and the message is all based in that fact. Sorry, I got lost in the question for a second because my friend just let me know he made it home safe. What was the rest of the question?
It's just, what was musical upbringing like?
Oh yeah, great, thank you.
So obviously, you guys are like post rock. You got a lot of post rock and things. Like, did it sort of your eyebrows raised with what you listened to at the time?
Yeah, so I grew up a pastor's kid at a pretty large church, and so did my brother, and actually so did Jeremiah. Just a different church. He's not obviously, we didn't grow up in our hometown, and then our other original guitarist grew up at our church with my brother and I. So we grew up at a big church, and I'm sort of thankful that like we grew up in a large enough church. But I also went to public school, and my parents weren't like fully like hiding me in like a Christian school or homeschool, like, not to knock anybody whose experience that was, but there was a really nice salty sweetness of sort of the church being big enough. And honestly, the church I was, my youth pastor was a lovely dude, but the guys that had the biggest impact besides my dad were a couple of high school kids that were like 3 or 4 years older than us. And they were the raddest dudes. They all skated. They all listened. They all knew what was literally actually good. They'd be like, we'd be on like mission trips, and they'd be introducing me to Rage Against the Machine and like deep cut ska and grunge and stuff. And so there was this nice salty sweet of like the love of God, this idea of grace and forgiveness and mercy, the stuff that I still find to be very relevant to my life, and that I find to be relevant to almost anyone's life, whether or not they're a person of faith, that the ideas of grace and mercy and forgiveness and healing and like, speaking, like, I guess confession sounds weird, but like naming the things that you're struggling with, these things have great universal power for everybody. Taking that stuff from the faith and mixing it with like the DIY punk hardcore grunge scene. Cause I mean, obviously grunge was leaking into everything when I was in high school, when I was in middle school. And I'm also like, I grew up like 45 minutes from DC. And so it was really cool to understand like, wow, a lot of the most integral music in the world, this cutting edge grunge that like was growing out of the roots of hardcore punk, which is really heavily based in DC. And so having those two things, it's like this spirit of like love and forgiveness and DIY, we can do it ourselves, and don't trust the man, and we got to take care of each other. Like, man, those things really were a really powerful mixture. And I'm super thankful because both of those things have proven them, like, and not, over 40 years of life, to be very true to me. Like we can, when things get really big, people tend to get dehumanized and things tend to get kind of crazy, and we got to look out for each other, and we can't quite trust, like, all those things, like the punk and the hardcore mixing with sort of the really most basic elements of Christianity. Like, really. So, and in my youth group, they sort of like just let us do what we want. And my dad sort of grew up like in the hippie movement and had an afro and stuff. And he grew up in inner city DC in a very integrated neighborhood. Yeah. So there was not a lot of clutching pearls. There was like, if I remember my dad didn't like distortion at first, which he just called the button, because when I'd press the button, the guitar would get distorted. And at first he would be like if my aunts were visiting or something, my brother would play drums and I'd play guitar, we'd play him something. And we would play something clean or pretty because we knew that my dad would like that more. And as the years went on, like it didn't take long until he'd be like, okay, push the button, play him, because he could tell it was good. Like he could tell that even the heavy stuff was like good. So, I mean, I remember my dad for a little bit would just being like, not really morally bummed, but just being like, oh, I raised you on, like, my dad sort of raised me on contemporary Christian music and soul, like the Commodores. And then I was getting all this grunge and stuff along with like CCM I was getting grunge from school. Like I remember listening to Smashing Pumpkins and the Deftones and all this stuff, like as it was coming out, Rage Against the Machine, Nirvana, all that stuff, early Foo Fighters. And it was all just like a soup. So my dad was a little bit like, oh man, I don't get this music, but I don't have a moral issue with it. Like it's fine if it's loud. It just took him a while to start liking it, you know, but then he did. So, and anyone who would have given us crap about that, like we just weren't interested. Like it wasn't really a thing, you know, it wasn't, because we were already like, dude, we go to public school. None of us are like doing drugs. We're all getting good grades. We're all trying to love God and like share our faith. Like just get off. If they had given us crap about the sound of our music, that would have been, we were already so over, like the whole, like, can't have drums in the church. We'd just be like, dude, whatever, like whatever, like not interested. Like this is, and also like our current member, Nate, is always real. He'll just be like, that's just not for me. Like, I think we just would have been like, oh, then we're just not for you. Like, that's fine. You know?
Yeah. I feel like that's what gives you your uniqueness. The that combination of different backgrounds, like with the religion and like the punk background, putting those two together is what gives you your unique sound.
Thank you. I agree. Like I agree too. And I also think that like, oh man, I just lost my thought. But yes, I agree. I think you put your finger on it, Simon. And I've been thinking about it lately too, because have a daughter, and so I'm like thinking about where did all this stuff come from, and so thanks for asking about that.
You want to say out, Tyler?
Yeah, and so I'm kind of going off of that. I think one thing that I love that you said was kind of like a soup of like genres at the end of the day. I mean, it's pulling in all these different styles and stuff like that. And so, you know, you guys.
Oh wait, I know what I was going to say, Simon.
Oh yeah.
Which was just that when you grow up and you're like, you like punk and hardcore, there's even though we were Christian kids, at least the kids I grew up with, and you want to do good, there's a part of you that also like kind of doesn't want adults to get it or like it. You're like, it's not for them.
Yeah.
So like the few 50-year-olds that turn their nose up at you, they're like, that's kind of like, that's good. You know, like it's not for you. Like you're not supposed to get it. Like we weren't actively aggravating anybody, but I think subconsciously we were like, yeah, this is dangerous, you know? Anyway, sorry, Tyler, go ahead. You had a question.
No, you're totally good. I'm right there with you. So just like as a side tangent, I'm, you know, from a Christian background. I grew up Christian. I was a missionary kid and stuff like that. And yeah, and so
you had a really tough thing. That's way tougher than a PK.
No, but it was great. But ultimate. You know it, man. No, but it was wonderful. And you know, my dad was into back in college into like new metal and stuff like that. And so he got me into that stuff. Oh, cool. And no, like. I definitely get that of the idea of like, maybe you're not supposed to get it, but like I would find all like you guys were part of that group of like bands that I found that did, you know, the heavier stuff, but that Christian message behind it and stuff like that. So I've always enjoyed that. But with like y'all's sound, I think one thing I've noticed is, I mean, obviously you guys been doing this for about 2 decades now, and you know, going all the way back to then, like I think what I've always appreciated about y'all's music is essentially that you're not afraid to try a bunch of different things. Like that's very present, like very early on with I Am Undone, and yet it was a lot more of that post-hardcore feel. Behold went into more of that post-rock style. The EPs of Ultraviolet and Violence kind of mix that beauty and aggression, kind of going even further into that ambient style and stuff like that. And then even with Loriella, you know, taking on that a little bit more of like, I don't know, like a punchier sound, but still just very ambient and beautiful sounding. And so kind of looking back at y'all's career and just all that you guys have in your discography, how were you guys able to, you know, take all these different styles, take all these different influences and be able to hone them in certain, you know, albums or EPs that you guys made?
Well, I think we're always interested in making, I mean, the journey is the best part more than the destination of the career. I mean, when you're making stuff. Like my favorite thing is it being in the process of making stuff with my friends and discovering it together. And I've heard it said before that like writing music or any creative task when it's going well is more like archaeology than engineering. Like you feel like you're discovering it. And that's something where even my friends who are like stone cold atheists, if they're creatives, they'll admit it. Like when you do good stuff, it does feel like you're discovering it. Like the shape of it kind of tells you what it wants to be in kind of a spooky way. And the thing I always point out to in this is like when you're writing anything, movie, book, song, and like you got a good part, like, you know, you're all in love with the chorus or you all love this, the twist in chapter 2. And then you're trying to write the next part and you'll come up with an idea and you'll play it. And sometimes you'll all be like, that's not right. And that's an absurd thing to say because you're making it up. So it could be anything. What do you mean it's not right? But you all know, like when we're in a room together, what makes my epic is whoever's in the band at that time, those friendships, that alchemy, it's our taste coming together. So it's super interesting to me to be like, you are discovering something. So I like to think there's a consistency, Tyler, in that we've always tried to have this, even as much as we've changed in all these years, in all the ways that we've changed. And, you know, you need to grow, you need to progress as a person, that there's been always this integrity of like trying to do the best thing we can, trying to be the most honest we can, there's not a lot of artifice in the band. There's not a lot of like, we're not a band who is like funny. Like we have a lot of fun, but like the songs aren't funny, like even when they're sweet. And I also think from the beginning, there was this idea of, we knew there was going to be big dynamics. Like that's what was interesting. Even the name, which our original guitarist Maddie suggested, and I voted against and lost, thankfully, because my option was even worse. As much as I dislike My Epic as a band name, my choice was worse. Like
what was it?
We knew we wanted it to have big swings because we liked all this stuff, and we also knew we wanted it to be centered on like serving the emotion and whatever was being said in that song. And then I think every time we go to write a new record, it's like, well, we usually don't we've never had to turn a record in until we were proud of it, until people can think whatever they want. And that's totally their right. But like whenever we've turned a record in, we felt like that's the best thing we've ever done. And in a sense, we've always changed the target because it's like, well, we did what we wanted to on Ultraviolet. So now let's aim for violence. Or like, oh, really that came out of like after Behold, it was like Viscera was just kind of keeping the engine going. And it was like, that was a conceptual record, which we were really proud of how those 4 some change songs turned out. And then it was like, all right, let's split our dynamic and do 2 EPs that go together. Just keep looking for new challenges. And then it was like, oh, we haven't done a full length in forever. And honestly, one of the, you know, with L'Oreal, it was like, oh, we knew it was going to be a more hopeful, like finding the hope after Innocence, because it just wrote this really heavy record that was, you know, dealing with we did a record about doubt and then a record about pain and struggle. And so I was like, I don't have any more of that in me. I just said all that as well as I can say it. And so, and where I'm at in my life, you know, as some water has gone under the bridge, is like, oh, I'm looking more at like, what does it look like to find hope again? And what does it look like to like be looking back at life with new eyes after the inevitable loss of your youth and your innocence. And so I think it's always just like, when we turn a record and we feel like we've said that thing well, whatever that thing was. And then when it's time, we're like, well, what's different? What's next? I don't want to try to write a better Lower Still. I don't want to try to write a better Blacklight. I don't want to try to write a better Heavy Heart. Like I'm happy, you know, and I can see like evolving, like songs are related to me. Like obviously Hail is like has evolved from Lower Still, and Blacklight has evolved from that tree, and Red Hands is like, that's our heavier tree. But like, we're not trying to write another one like that. And so I think that's huge. And I think the other thing besides the integrity, and that, again, whoever's in the band at that season, like we've never had anyone leave bad. Anyone who's left is like been for just kind of like, we're all close. Like Matt, who was our drummer for like 1 year during Broken Voice, literally came out to our show in Charlotte and hung out. My brother Jeremiah lives around the corner from me. Besides that integrity of like, where are we at? What do we care about? And then listening together. I think the other thing that kind of keeps us centered is that I am accidentally the primary songwriter as the vocalist, and I'm the most limited person in the band. And that's not a joke. Like Nate is a full-time producer and can play every instrument. Tanner can play multiple instruments and could also produce and owns a coffee chain. Alex is one of the best drummers on the planet. He's insane. All these guys but like when I write a song, and it's a good thing. It keeps, and Nate says a lot as a producer, and Matt Goldman, who we've worked with for years, like it helps keep us My Epic, that like I can't help but do certain things. And so changing all these North Stars, like we've never been too worried. I mean, we're always keeping it in mind. Like are we losing the plot? Are we losing what makes us us? But early on, like before we did Broken Voice, Jason Dunn, who owned Face on Records, who's one of my best friends, who was our label head, we were like, should we do this? Like, people actually liked Yet. And we sort of needed to make something else, but we had just had some members come in and like, we didn't feel confident to go right back at we had all these kind of accidental acoustic songs. Can we do this? He's like, I don't think people will care. If you put the same intention in it and you sing it and you write lyrics the same way and your melodies, like people will accept it. And they kind of did. And so ever since then, it's been like, oh, great. Like, I'll write riffs. Like, honestly, if it sounds like a riff, 80% of the time I probably wrote it. You know, like Tanner is very ethereal and is incredible. I could go anywhere in the world. If Tanner was playing guitar, I would know it's him. Nate's the same way on bass. When I write riffs, it's just, I'll play a new riff and they'll be like, yeah, that's sick. That's an Aaron. They call them Aaron riffs. Like, don't know why my brain works that way. Cause they'll be like, sometimes like when Nate would have to fill in on guitar or something, they'd all be like, yeah, it took me a while to figure out cause the riff doesn't make sense. It sounds good, but it's not the way a guitarist would play guitar. So these things kind of help us like not lose our North Star with like dynamics are important and all these things. I'm answering really long, but
it's funny you say that. I 100% agree with that because I've been in bands and I have my part that I'm good at doing, but I feel that having other members is integral. Like, it's great to see solo artists that can do everything, but for me, I love getting in a band with other people just to see what their personality brings to it. Because like you say, there's something very metaphysical about it all that you can't explain. But when all the personalities come together, there's just this thing that just electrifies you that you can't really explain.
Well, that alchemy, that like reaction is what makes a band. And I think solo artists are great, but I'm not interested in being that. Like, and Nate could do everything by himself. And he has, there's records for major bands where Nate literally played everything but the singer, I'm not going to give their names away, but like he could, but like we want, I mean, there's so many songs over the years where it's like, oh, that song wouldn't sound that way if I didn't, and Tanner and Jesse and Jeremiah and Nate, whoever was in the band at that time, if it didn't come together, like, and we bounced off each other or we like pulled each other a little bit in these directions. Like it's what I love and I'm interested in is like what happens, you know, you sort of become a hive mind, Simon, you know, and you feel it. It's really special live when you're playing together. And like, you think about it, like when you do a big hit or you all come in together or something, it just playing, like when I play, I can only play my part and I need the bass to come in here and I need the drums to come in. And when they do, you sort of feel like a magician because you did your part and then you made these other humans do their thing. Like you sort of like, you feel like you're bigger than yourself and you are like the sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Like it's really special to be part of that. And to be involved in that process is like one of my favorite things. And I'll also say I'm very blessed now as much as ever, but always like if we write a new song or a new record, if me and Nate and Tanner, which is really the core of the band in this season, and like if we all love something, I couldn't be more like flattered that they love it too. And at that point, we're in a good position because we can put it out. And if we chase trends or if we chase what the fans want that we think they want, because you're always like how much we use the term the perfect amount, the right amount of different. Like you want to do the right amount of different, and that's really hard to figure out. And so you sort of just have to go like, what are we excited about? Because it's been 3 years, and this is kind of where we've changed. How do we honor that? And if we get to the point where all three of us are excited, or all three of us and Goldman, or us and Alex, or whatever, are all excited, then I go, okay, we can put it out. And if people like it, they like it. And if they don't, we can still say, well, we believed in it and we still believe in it. But if we chase some trend and we miss and nobody likes it and we don't like it, we can't even stand behind it. And now we've wasted time and there's no integrity. So I'd rather just, I think we could have made a lot of choices that would have served the band better as a business. Like people love our acoustic stuff. I just haven't been interested in making more of it. It hasn't been sonically interesting to me. And so like after 2011, after Broken Voice, which was kind of we did that on the cheap. It was like, oh, we should have done a bunch more acoustic stuff at a much higher production level. And we just were like, that's not what we're interested in. Like we have to be true to where we feel like we're at. And that's the best thing I can put into the world. And then we can live with it. And if Nate and Tanner and I are all excited, I'm already so flattered that I got to be a part of it, you know?
Yeah. I want to get into. You've alluded to it anyway. I want to get into Behold. So both
Okay.
myself and Tyler think Behold is your best record. Well, Tyler thinks it's the
Okay.
best record ever made, and it's not. It's pretty close. It's definitely my top 10. So, like you said with L'Oreal, it's very it's more upbeat records. Each record has its own character, but there's a real gravity to Behold. So,
Mm.
was it more intense to write, record, and as opposed to the other records that you've made?
Man, I got to think about. See, quarantine that record, did it feel different? It was one of the hardest because it was the first record I did after I was also like I Am Undone, and Yet and Broken Voice. I was pretty much doing the band full time, and whatever other jobs I did were side jobs just to go back on tour. Um, Behold, I was a pastor full time, and I was writing it in the cracks and the crevices, and so we went to studio, and I didn't have enough songs done lyrically, and I almost had like a breakdown. And thankfully, um, like Tanner and Maya and in my band, and then Goldman, who was recording, and Jason were like, "Hey, man, take your time. We'll just spend the rest of the 2 weeks we're here, and we'll make it sound awesome, and you can come back when the lyrics are written." So in that way, the lyrics are sort of always getting finished last. But like that record, literally, like the record was recorded. I think Tanner might have done some additional stuff from his little home studio as the lyrics were being finished, like to help sew some things together. Most of the rest of the records, like we've been able to sort of the record was kind of locked, like what the song sounded like. So it was emotionally one of the toughest. I was really into studying the Psalms at the time and the different types of Psalms. And like, so that was a guiding star. Like each of those songs is a type of Psalm. And at the time, I think like Tanner had just joined the band, and we wrote Broken Voice together, but it was exciting to write a full band record with him. It was exciting to write. That was our first 4-piece record. So the first two, I was the only guitarist, and we sort of held ourselves to that constraint. And for I Am Undone, we sort of threw everything in the kitchen sink because it's our first and you never know if you're going to get to do it again. And with Yet, which is where we really got traction, it was the clarity of like, no, just the 3 instruments, like pretty much no piano. There's like one bell part on a song, but it was like guitar, bass, drums, sometimes a baritone guitar instead of a regular guitar, no double guitars anywhere. Like if I'm playing, whatever I'm playing is the only guitar that's happened. Sometimes we double the track, but we wouldn't like write a rhythm guitar. Just be, that's the guitar. And so then for Behold, it was like, it was very freeing because we love a lot of really big stuff that's also ambient, you know, stuff like Sigur Rós and Mogwai, and then heavy stuff like the Deftones and Hum, and the kind of the double guitar effect you get from a band like For This Seems Forever or even the Foo Fighters to some degree. And so it was nice to be like, okay, now we have all this stuff that we can add back in because we can execute it live. And also there was all this stuff that we liked that we didn't know how to do. And Tanner was showing up with that bag of tricks, and we're like, okay. And so, and that was also the first time where there was another person in the band who could be writing the songs by them. Like there was another primary songwriter. Tanner is also a songwriter. And so that was exciting for me. Although Tanner really quarantined himself in some ways. Like he would sit in the room and he wouldn't hold an instrument. And the other 3 of us would write, and he would sort of sit in the room like a producer. Like he wouldn't pick up his instrument until he would be like, oh, I think maybe that part could be twice as long. Or I think the next part should be, he would be equally a part of the discussion of like, because we're usually talking philosophically about like what could happen next, what would feel right. But he wouldn't be offering riffs. Like he wanted the backbone of the record to be my riffs because he didn't want to be the one responsible for messing up what had gone right on Yet. And so, which was cool. And I appreciate it. I also was like, please give me some, like I'm not trying to be the guy. Like this doesn't need to be my show. And thankfully, like when Nate joined the band later, Nate, like he can't help it. Like Nate is going to Nate. And so I've enjoyed the last couple records of like Nate bringing stuff and then it freeing up Tanner, like more than ever. Like now the band is 3, there's 3, you know, Nate, Tanner, and all of us write songs. So, but Behold, it was like, it was the excitement of having that, the excitement of adding all the ambient stuff. the pressure of like wearing 2 jobs. For me, there was also a real tension that I see now in that time. Maybe that's what you're feeling, of trying to still fit in. Like I was working at a church, but I was already like a very, even as a person of faith, I had already become a lot more progressive and liberal than the community that I was in. Like when I went back to that church, it was a tough thing to go back. My home church asked me to come back, and I went back because I appreciated and honored their contribution to my life. And we agreed about some really core things, obviously, but there was a lot of things we were kind of agreeing to disagree on. And so I look back and see there was a lot of tension in me about like, what record can I make that's honest, that won't be like dunking on anyone or like trying to be too angsty. Whereas like, I think I think the record would have, and I think I found it. I think I struck that balance, but it made it even harder because it was like, well, instead of just what can I write that will, and it was like, I wasn't worried about anyone being mad, but I was subconsciously like, I just love the people that are in my life. And so I'm not trying to like make anyone upset. So that was another thing of like trying to figure out how can I also not just write what's honest and all that stuff, but how can I had more clarity on, I was viewing more faces in my mind when I was like, how do I say this? Who am I imagining I want to hear this? Like maybe it was clarifying in some ways. I think about that record, and I still like, we don't play a lot of that record live because, and I think it's probably one of the things that's good about it that people like. A lot of the songs are really drug out. Like all the songs are overly long, which was kind of like one of the things that we talked about in L'Oriella was like, hey, and this is a reality. When we play a set list, if we're not headlining, even if we are, we have so many of our best songs are long. And it's like, okay, well, if we play Memoir and we play Zion and we play Hail and we play Lower Still and I say anything, that's like 40 minutes. Like, and I also think like, again, like not wanting to do the same thing is like, I love Hail. I'm not going to stop playing Hail. That's one of my favorite riffs I've ever written. So what can we write this time? Like, oh, I want to write Wildflowers. Like I want to write Heavy Heart because I want to add that to when we play live, like getting to play those songs together. Like this last tour, Heavy Heart was sort of the last song before we closed with Hail. I love that, like I'm not really, there's so many things I can look back and like be like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I mean, you make records and you grow up, like you change. So there's so much to be embarrassed about. And anytime you grow, I'm sure I will feel that way about L'Oriella in 10 years, but I can also just honor that dude and be like, yeah, Behold to me was a huge step forward into the band that we had always wanted to be. And with Yet, it was like, well, we can't do a lot of that stuff because there's just 3 of us. So this is the best band we can be. And I think we really felt like we took the top off. Maybe I feel like we didn't quite know how to rein it in. Maybe we accidentally made something that is the perfect thing for people because it is so long and like takes its time,
Yeah, and kind of with that, I mean, so kind of like Simon said, I'm willing to admit, and this might be pure bias in an interview with you, I don't really care, is sure. Behold is one of probably my favorite record ever.
Oh, amazing.
Straight up.
Thank you.
It genuinely is. And part of the reason for that is I like what you said about the like lyrical aspect of it. For me, that's what really struck me was, I'm sure you've probably seen it before, being in that same kind of growing up in that same field, is there is a lot of great worship music out there, but there's also a lot that just lacks that, I feel like, very real side of life of accepting doubt and frustrations and anger in your life and just being like, well, what's going on? And I think like what you said, I think really matches that well, where you kind of at the time we're studying the Psalms, and I would say it's relatively evident in the music, because I look at specifically Curse is probably my favorite song on that album.
Would have stayed to the end, wept at your feet and died by your side. Yeah.
And
oh, cool.
And cool. And part of the reason is just because it has that very real side of faith, I feel like, of, kind of stepping back and being like, well, if I was in that place, I'm sure I would have done this and I'm sure I would have said this. But then, you sit there and kind of realize everything that happened during the crucifixion, what happened during the resurrection, and how you kind of live from that. It's like, okay, that happened. Now what am I doing with it? And I think that's a beautiful thing. And so, kind of going with that, like you said, you were studying the Psalms at the time, and that's what very much influenced Behold. But, looking at, each part in your life, obviously you in 2025 is very different from you in 2008 when you guys were taking care of I Am Undone and looking towards Yet. And so for you, when you look at the lyrics and kind of where you guys have come from, what sort of like things in your life and sort of experiences, whether that's studying parts of scripture or genuinely just moments in your life where you are having struggling with things and struggling with your idea of spirituality or even just struggling with everyday life. How has that influenced your lyrical storytelling throughout my epic?
That's a great question. Well, the integrity piece is huge. I mean, one of the artists that impacted me really strongly as a kid when my parents were heavily playing like Christian radio was Rich Mullins, which became a door into like singer-songwriters, like some of the greatest singer-songwriters, like the John Prynes of the world. And like really setting a high bar lyrically. And so most of what was happening in the worship in the church world and even in the CCM world, just this is a me thing. It just wasn't interesting to me. And like, how many times can you say I was struggling and falling beneath the waves? And it's like, dude, I don't want to throw shade at anybody. That stuff just feels like we've said that a lot. And I actually think if Jesus came back now, he would be just as revolutionary and just as progressive, and he would shock the religious people just as much as he did then. And so I always kind of viewed him as an outsider. And so I kind of felt like, I think if he came back, I think he would hear most worship songs and be like, man, you are just rewriting the same song. Like this, and I mean, all of it, it's just all is like, when people just keep rewriting the Psalms with the same lyrics, like, you're still using the lion metaphor, the lamb. Like, I think it's good to re-sing the old songs, but like you're writing new songs with lion and lamb metaphors. None of you are shepherds. Like, why is that the metaphor? Like, that was the metaphors that they were grabbing because that was what was in their life. And so I think he'd be like, and I was saying this 12 years ago when we made Behold, like, I think he'd be offended. Like, you guys it's a good thing you're singing the old songs, but like your new songs are still using all this old language. Like, you are not where the people are at. You are not where, like, if God is a God of truth, if he's real and if he's alive, then it ought to be like piercing. It ought to speak about like what's happening right now. Like, I have friends, God, and I love them and appreciate them, but who are like, oh, we don't need to talk about anything else but like the faith, like not politics, all that. I'm like, that's garbage. Like, if it doesn't, we don't live in a vacuum. Like, if it doesn't speak to all this stuff, and Jesus was a person who spoke to all the stuff in his world. He was a revolutionary. There's a reason Rome put him to death. So I've kind of always felt like it was my job to try to always dig for not new, because no one reinventing the wheel. You're all standing on shoulders, but there's that feeling when you're writing a song and you just say it a little bit different. And I think the word is fresh. And I think art is always supposed to be fresh. And if it's fresh, then it can be timeless, if that makes sense. If it's fresh, it can be timeless. And I just found a lot of it to be like, it was, to me, like I've done a few times, like people have asked me to do, and this is totally my opinion and I could totally be wrong, but a few people have asked me, oh, will you do like, will you give like writing advice or writing production or whatever? I'm not good at it because I really only know how to write Aaron's, like my epic songs. Literally, I couldn't write a song that didn't sound like my epic song. And I couldn't write a song that's not personal. Anytime someone wants me to help, I don't know how to help other than like just writing, you know? But when I do, a lot of times, like I had a friend and he showed me a song he was working on. And I was like, oh, that line, this one line is great. And he hasn't really put much out yet. And it is a great line. I'm really proud of him for it. I was like, now I would keep working until every line in that song was as good as that line to me. And I would put in the time and I would wait. And from what I read of other, great accomplished artists, of which I am not, like writers and filmmakers, sometimes you have a breakthrough and it comes fast, but that's the exception. And that usually happens after, like, because you've done so much work, like because you put in the hours. And so there's the labor there of just that's remained consistent, like waiting and digging and chipping away at the stone. until it is special. And understanding, like my partner and I always say, like it takes quantity to get quality. You cannot decide when you're going to write something great. You could just write a lot of stuff. And I think what makes great artists is A, they're willing to do that work. And then B, they actually have a filter that's good enough to know when they made something special. Like they go, okay, this kind of hit the bar. And every time we make a record, dudes, I'm like afraid I've lost it, like maybe I got lucky every other time, and then when something good happens and I know it, I'm like, that's the first time. Okay. I didn't lose it. My taste is still, you're always trying to, Ira Glass, who's the host of This American Life. He has this great, is from his podcast, but it's gone viral and you can look it up. But he talks about how the tough thing when you start making art is at first your taste is good. That's why you want to make music. Like you like Radiohead and Radiohead is brilliant, but then you make your first song and it doesn't sound anything like your Radiohead because you have no idea how to do that. And so the tough thing is it takes so long to close the gap between your taste and your ability. But if you keep working at it, and if you're gifted and blessed, whatever terms you want to use, eventually you start to close that gap a little bit, or at least you close that gap in the way that you can. Like, oh, I can't be Radiohead. I think a lot of times, like I can't be any of the artists that inspired me. I can't be the Deftones. I can't be Sigur Rós. And I can't be Furthest Seems Forever. And I can't be so many other bands, but I try to be all those artists and Imogen Heap and Phoebe Bridgers, whatever. And I miss, and what I land on is me, like everyone is inspired by artists. And thankfully, none of us quite know how to sound like the ones we want to. And so we accidentally become ourselves. So did that fully answer your question, Tyler? I don't know if I nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, no, I definitely, just that idea of, I don't know. At the end of the day, it's sticking true to yourself. Like you said, I love what you said just at the beginning of, I don't know, just kind of being real about it. Like you said, we don't live in a vacuum. And I feel like that gets lost a lot is, we can treat it as this is just what we live in and this is just us. And it's like, no, it's not just you. And if it was just us, then the whole purpose of our faith would not be a thing.
Right. And I don't mean this word actually in a spiritual or churchy sense. I think it's an issue of stewardship, whether you think that talents are God-given or the universe, whatever you want to call it, or that you just have, you can, so you should. But I view it as like, I can. And I feel, and I obviously have a strong opinion about that. And so I want to make good with what I have, I want to do the best I can because that's an opportunity. I'm so thankful. And I view everything that way. Like the time I have with my daughter, I'm so blessed, lucky, thankful, whatever word you want to say, to have a daughter. I want to do what I know is the best to be a dad to her. My wife, I feel the same way. My business today, we just shot all day today. I'm with dudes that I love. We're working hard for a client. It's like, well, we're here and we have this opportunity. So how can we make the most of it or be faithful, whatever language you want to use? I'm a tremendously optimistic, posy person. I just, even now, when we went and did some shows last month or this month and did some time in studio working on new music for a new record. And part of me, besides that it went well, besides that I connected with lots of fans, and besides that I got to see some of my favorite dudes and play together, and it felt so freaking good and almost nothing obviously my wife and my daughter and there's some things, but there's very little that feels that good or better than that. But on top of that, when it's done, I also feel this very cosmic sense of I did one of the things that I'm supposed to do. Whether or not we're successful or make money, well, I'm just thankful that the tour worked out. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't waste that thing,
I love I love that perspective. I've never met anyone that's put it in the same way you have, but it's something I think of as well. You can only be you when it comes to writing. You do have inspirations, but that's exactly how I am as well. It's like you can only be you. If not to put it on me, but if I ever write stuff, it's like I don't have I have this in my head. I'm gonna try and sound like that. You just write and it just comes out.
Yeah.
I just think
somebody much more brilliant than me said it. I got to be myself because I'm not good at being anybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, of course you're carrying all those influences. Every heavy riff I write has faint notes of Strong Arm and and the Deftones and Mogwai's heavier stuff, all that stuff is in there. But like, it's inspiring you. It's sort of subconscious at that point. Like if you're consciously trying to write a hum riff, that's bad. If you're subconsciously, and then you go, oh, that's kind of hum. I kind of dig that. You know, that's good. But like, you know, I think Behold, which is funny that you guys point that record out. I think that the media cycle for that, or the promotional cycle for that, was the first time I told a guy on an interview, I said, for better or for worse, nobody else was going to write these songs. Like we're the only band that's going to write these songs. And now I just say, I don't say that for better or for worse. We're just like, we're the only band that's going to write these songs. And I'm thankful that we get to.
Yeah, that's really cool. That. So you alluded to it before. After Beholds, you did a lot of EPs. So I find that really interesting. Obviously, you know, Behold got critical reception, and most people would just jump off the back of that and write another album. But you just wrote an EP and then a double EP. So what? And then obviously L'Oriella last year. So what was the thought behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it felt like Behold almost broke me and us with like trying to do a full length and be not full time. I mean, I always joke we're not a full time band, but we are when we do it. Like when we get together, like we don't know how to like write songs that sound like a part time band. Like we're gonna write and record until we feel like, no, that's the best thing. That's gonna sound like a band. No one's gonna know we're not on tour all the time. I miss those days for sure, but it just almost broke us and took so much longer. And so I was like, okay, EPs, writing 4 songs is so much more easier to me than writing 12 or 10. Like the work is exponential, because it's like, even if you finish one, you only finish 10%. That's crushing. Whereas like if I finish one song on Viscera, it's like you're 25% done. It's like, dude, I'm cruising now. Like we're moving. And so that was the practical thing, was like our lives at that time. We were no longer, I was working at the church, and Jesse had come back into the band. He left for a couple of years to do family stuff. Jeremiah was in the band. Tanner was doing other stuff. And so it was like, okay, this is something it's like we can stop, or we can't really go harder. We can stop. We don't want to do that. So it's always been like, well, what's the most we can do and still all enjoy it? And we've always also considered like the thing about one of the most special things about the band is our banding together, our relationships. And so what is the most we can do that is still enjoyable and healthy? Now, I one of the things I talk about with my business partner is like, rushing is bad, pushing sometimes is good. Like to make something great, sometimes you have to push. Making a baby, making a record, you want to make something great, every now and then you got to push. But rushing is bad. That's a bad headspace. And and they're both addictive. And so I was like, okay, how do we do this in a way that feels healthy, but lets us keep going? And so that was the EPs. You know, it was Viscera, which was just like, okay, people liked Behold. We're kind of recalibrating. Now we're not touring all the time. I couldn't tour all the time, which was, you know, I don't know that I regret it, but in an alternate life, like it would be interesting to see if we'd have just kept full time for a couple more years, where we would have been, but it wasn't something everybody could handle. And I don't regret not doing the thing that took care of everybody. You know, like I said, we don't have any bad breakups or any lost friendships, and it's all sweet memories. And that's one of the most important things to me. And then with Ultraviolet and Violence was like, okay, people kind of want another full length. Can we kind of cheat one by putting out 2 EPs in a row and also using it thematically to like help us focus writing? I don't know that people perceived it that way, but we love those songs, and they're some of our favorites, or those 2 records to play live. In some ways, again, full respect to Behold and to the dudes who made that record. But in a lot of ways, there's songs on there that are reaching for things that to us sonically, maybe not so much lyrically, because I was in a different headspace, but like sonically, like we were really growing into the band we wanted to be. Like once we kind of as Viscera was ending, like once Nate came into the band, we had all that. It was a Nate, me, Tanner, everybody. Like we really felt like, okay, now we're finally, the songs are turning out the way we want. We wanted them to sound like the whole time. And so, and then after 3 EPs, we signed with Tooth and Nail, and they were like, you guys can do whatever you want. But we were like, no, we need to do another full length. It's been, at the time, it had been like 7 years. By the time we finished, it was like 9 or whatever, 11. I don't know. It was a lot. It was like everybody, every time would be like, love the new EP. Wish we had a full length. You greedy people. But
I might have been one of those people.
Yeah, no, it's super
Glad I knew
flattering. No, thank you. That's super flattering. So it was like, yeah, and also it was the new challenge again. It had been 10 years. Can we make a full length? What does that look like? And with Loriella, the big change, there were so many big changes. One of which, like, Nate moved fully to bass because Maya left the band, which also like unblurred, like Tanner was able to be more involved. He wasn't quite as involved with Violence and Ultraviolet. I mean, he was still involved. He still came to studio, still wrote. But Nate had joined the band and kind of picked up some slack. And so this was the first record where the three of us were like riding like a three-headed dog, Cerberus or whatever it's called. And that was super exciting to be writing that way. And also Nate was like, I'm going to write the bass and not any guitar. And you and Tanner will just write. Cause he's like, you two sound like yourselves. Like, and to me, that's another thing that maybe L'Oreal has in relation to Behold, is that like, if it sounds like a riff, I probably wrote it. And if it sounds like ethereal guitar, it's probably Tanner. There are exceptions for sure, but it was like clarifying. And so, yeah, it's just like always, that was the new exciting challenge. And now we're like getting ready to start doing singles and build singles into a record. Cause it's like, that seems like the smartest thing. Maybe it'll help. At the time, I was like, well, it's going to take us a long time to do another full length. We can get an EP out sooner. At least we'll be active. Then I was like, oh, we need to do a full length. It's been too long. Now it's like, can we do singles and be more relevant, like be out more often, and then hold a few songs back, and then we'll have a full length in 2 years, but people will have heard singles all the way, and so we won't be silent. So just practicality mixed with like, what is the healthiest thing we could do for each other?
Yeah, and kind of looking more at that with the idea of EPs. So I got into you guys when I was like 16 or 17. So this was around the time that Ultraviolet and had come out, and then Violence was, going to be coming out. And, I fell in love with those albums and then got into Behold and all that stuff and kind of looking back. And so one thing I love that you said is the idea that you guys had, kind of started to grow into it. And by that time is whenever you were like, this is the stuff we want to make. And, obviously Ultraviolet, Violence, kind of piece that together, make it a full length, if you wanted to. And
in our heads, we do.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's how I view it as well. But then 5 years later, you have L'Oreella. And so, like you said, those were kind of the songs that you wanted to finally start getting into. And like, that's where you guys felt that you had found your style. And I mean, obviously, all the other albums before were your style, just that evolution of style. And so, looking at around that time of Ultraviolet up until today, kind of what are your biggest like influences and what are your biggest strives in trying to make that sound like you?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're still in love with dynamics. So we still love if you listen to the new record and we literally put Make Believe next to Red Hands on the same record, literally back to back for a reason. Like we love both of those things. And I think with L'Oreella, it was wanting to write some shorter songs, being just naturally excited about that. Like, we just written so many, like Red Hands was the only song where we just like, let it be what it is. Let it be as long as it wants to be. And the fans who like that will like it. And that was the easiest song on the record to write. Cause it was just like, oh, we just won't temper it. Like, we'll just let it. It's harder to write shorter songs, honestly. Oh dude, the exhaustion's kicking in. Tell me the question again.
No, good. Just kind of looking at, like you said, how those were kind of the songs that you guys wanted to start writing and that you felt you had kind of reached that point. And so, like, what are your biggest influence in that writing, as well as how do you guys maintain and continue to write in that style?
Well, part of what's helpful is that Nate, as a full-time producer, is very current. So he's always like showing me whatever is like hitting, whether he likes it or not, and then what he likes. Tanner is very cool. He's one of the coolest people. He can't help it. He always finds rad artists, and we'll all listen to it. Like, this is one of the sickest, craziest things I've ever heard. And then you go check, and the band has like 5,000 monthly listeners, and they live like in Finland. I don't know how he finds this stuff. He's just a literally cool person. And so they're always feeding me new stuff. And I've kind of rediscovered music the last 5 years. Especially like I've just fallen in love with singer-songwriters, female singer-songwriters. Like Phoebe Bridgers, Imogen Heap before that, a fellow Brit, Simon, like absolutely changed my life. And then so many female singer-songwriters I loved the last 5 years as like emo, and then 90s grunge kind of came back. It was kind of like music was circling back to what I loved, and my talents now are like with a song like Wildflowers, like as that song was kind of, again, I'm just writing riffs, but as I'm writing the riffs, it's like, oh, this song's kind of like what if Refused tried to write a Gin Blossoms song. And those are both bands, like Refused is like one of the most important heavy post-hardcore defining, The Shape of Punk to Come is like top 10 record for me. Like that, and like something like Found Out About You on the radio of like Gin Blossoms, like I'm in middle school hearing that stuff, like writing that stuff with like a little sprinkle of Mew, who's one of our favorite bands as well. And I'm not trying to do that. It just is that. And so it was exciting to like, oh, some like our 90s stuff is just kind of coming out more. And we experimented with more fuzz and kind of like letting some of that stuff show on Ultraviolet and Violence. And it was like, we're just going to lean into it. Like we're going to like lean into it because I don't think we're going to lose the plot. We're going to still have huge parts. Like we still get psyched to write heavy parts, like, write heavy, bass chord riffs and stuff. And so I think it's like letting ourselves be excited about what we're listening to that's new, as well as like when something comes through that's kind of referencing something like, oh, I've always wanted to write like the big opening riff in Heavy Heart is like, I've always kind of wanted to write something that sounds like early Pumpkins riffs. And I wrote it. I was like, oh, that sounds like an early Pumpkins riff. Like, but it sounds like us. And then like the last riff that's on that song, that's kind of going the whole slide part, and then it hits at the end. Like that was the first heavy riff I wrote for the record, and I knew I wanted to write a more hopeful record. So when I wrote that riff, I was like, it sounds giant and it sounds happy. This record's gonna work. Like we're gonna make something new, and whether people like it or not, that they'll decide. But like this is new and it feels like us, and so yeah, just like always listening to new music. And honestly, now recently, like people were like, I've seen a lot of people like, I love L'Oriella. I wish there's a few more heavy songs, but I love it. And for some reason, we're all circling back into heavy music again. And like my daughter, my 4-year-old, like loves Sleep Token. And I'm just kind of along for the ride, like who doesn't? I guess every 4-year-old girl likes Sleep Token. And I'm not like snooty enough to hate it. I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, this is like, what if a gent band listened to The Weeknd? I get it. Then that's cool. I love all the new genre fluid stuff because I'm like, I hated the gatekeeping when I was a kid, when people were like, oh, that ska band can't do that. Or that, like, I feel like we got a lot of that when we were starting of like, but you're not hardcore. And I was like, who can't? Genres are made up. Like they're made up. Like, and if a band like, so to me, it's like, well, like I liked a lot of Post Malone's early stuff. When it's like, he's going country. I'm like, well, I don't like country, but dude, he should do whatever he wants. And and if it's good, it's good. Like, because his thing is like, I like this too. And I grew up on it. Well, then try. And so seeing bands like, so many genre fluid bands like Bill Murray or whoever is like mashing all these things up. Like me and Nate are totally Bill Murray pilled. It's like, I don't like country at all, but I like Turnstile and I like The Midnight. And I like, what are some of the other weird references in that band? Like they shouldn't be together. And the fact that this guy just likes it, he's like, well, it's what I like. Great, do that. So I'm inspired by like younger kids that are like mashing up things that aren't supposed to go together. Like you're going to fail like 9 times out of 10, but you might make something sick. You might make something new. And at least you made something you love. And if people are like, oh, you like Sleep Token shouldn't have so many R&B parts. Like, well, then just don't listen to it. It's not for you. Like who cares? Like, I think we should do a lot more like, that's not for me. Then like, I think good is such a, like art being good, especially like sonically and stuff, is such a subjective call. Like, it's just, I had a friend who's not an artist and he's like, well, everybody knows that song's good. I was like, no, that they don't. I hate that song. Like, but like, it's good. It's a good song because you like it, So yeah. I think just continuing to pay attention to new music and listen to it all, just like, and trying to like calculate that at the same time of like Nate and Tanner are so musically gifted and so gifted as producers that they're really good at not letting us jump the shark. I think on like, oh no, like we should not try. Like for us, like we can try it, but that doesn't sound good. And then they help kind of keep us reined in, as well as my lack of ability to do anything else. Like, I'm like, I'll write a riff and I'll be like, this is so different. And they'll be like, yeah, but it sounds like us. And I'm like, okay, good. That's good. It should sound like us.
Yeah. It's funny you say the people mentioning like, oh, there's not that you could do with more heavy songs on L'Oriella. I think the balance is really well done on that record, because while there is a lot more upbeat in tone songs, some of the heavy stuff on there is ungodly. Like the drop in North Star blew my face off.
Thank you, man.
You come up with that? Man. Was that you that came up with that drop?
Which drop? The drop before the second chorus, or the drop at the end?
At the end.
Oh, that was, dude, that one's the story. So we had a different ending that was almost like a sludgy doom riff, and it was very dark. Like the chord, it was very dark chords. It was a Tanner riff, which he doesn't. When he writes riffs, they're rad. And we recorded it because it was cool. It was like, oh, this is a big sludgy. It was more like the end of Red Hands, to be honest, or it was more like, kind of had like the lower still family tree of like dark riffs. And we recorded it, and the rest of the song sounded pretty much the way it sounds now. And the more we got into the record, me and Nate would kind of come back, because we were working a lot of times, like me and Nate would get together when the rest of us couldn't, and we would like move things forward, and then we'd send stuff to Tanner and he'd make progress. And then every few months we'd all meet together in studio and keep working. We were literally worked on that record for 2 years, because I had a baby, Nate had some health stuff, COVID happened. And so at some point me and Nate were like, dude, I freaking hate the ending. We both were like, I hate the ending. Oh, it's not emotionally and Nate was so good about that. This record, he produced this record by himself, and he was just like, it's not like, by then the lyrics were coming together. He's like, that doesn't serve, and everything should bow down to what needs to be said. Like, even if I wrote the best riff in the world, or Tanner wrote the best, it should die if it's not doing what the song is trying to say or do. And so we literally pulled everything out but the drums, and we rewrote. And there's the little 2-chord refrain that was from the end of High Color, the L'Oriella part. And we like, what if they did that same refrain here? And then we sort of wrote it, and I wrote the guitar that's a little more buried. This like sounds like me, that's a little stringier. And then I was like, I imagine this guitar that kind of sounds like M83, a slide guitar with some synths, like that's ascending, that makes this ending, instead of sounding sludgy, it sounds like heavenly big. And we were thinking of bands like the heavier M83 stuff and Mogwai and Sigaros, which Sigaros is like one of our favorite bands and was probably the biggest impression on Behold. And so having Tanner more involved, this record was more like Behold, which was exciting. And so we were in studio one time at Nate's house, and Nate had to go to the hospital for some health stuff. And so me and Tanner were alone for a couple days. And the end of that song was one of the ones where like me and Nate had changed to this simple 2-chord pattern. And I had written the first guitar, and then I was like, Tanner, I want your guitar to be like, and he, immediately dialed it in because he knew what I wanted. Slide guitar, tons of reverb. And then Nate's brother, Tyler, was hanging out, and he can engineer. So he like was engineering the session. All these old synths were in there. So we doubled it. It like happened really fast, and it sounded so huge and heavenly and like big. And then Nate came back from the hospital, and we were like showing him everything we worked on. He was like sitting there. We're like, okay, and here's the end. And by then he knew the chord changes, and he knew what my guitar did, but he heard all the slide guitar and the synth stuff, and it finished playing. And me and Tanner are sitting there like, well, I hope he likes this, because we're going to really have a fight. Like we felt like rarely do we fight, but like when you love something that much, you can be a little nervous that they're not going to love it too. And Nate's like, that is not what I thought you guys were going to do there. And I love it. And so yeah, it literally that evolved over like a year. And it was all of us together, but like the M83 kind of synthy vibe. But yeah, I mean, Nate was like, dude, it shouldn't be that riff. It should be, and I was like, what if we grab those chords? And then he's like, what if they were bass chords? We're like, okay, now we're in my epic territory. This feels good. And this feels emotionally like the end of this song that has something like really powerful and beautiful to say.
It must be really fun to play live, is it?
Yeah, it is, man. It super is. Like in this last tour is the first time we haven't used tracks in 10 years just because we don't get to play a lot. And once we added Nate in the band, it was easy for us just to go like, oh, let's be a rock band. Like, how do we, it's fun to interpret songs like live and go like, how do we play it as a 4-piece and just leave all the production? Because for a couple of years we would just have like the synths and stuff or the percussion. Like we weren't doubling any guitars or anything, but just the stuff that wasn't seeing. We're not fooling anybody. But it was fun for years to be like, oh, let's play all those songs without it. Like, what does a Behold song sound like without synths? What does an Ultraviolet song sound like without synths? But this last tour was like, oh, let's bring that stuff back just because it'll be different and fun. And so hearing the guitar sliding live and then the production doubling it, and then I mean, for us, that's like money. It's slamming a big riff like that with bass chords. Yeah, it just feels. I mean, if people haven't seen L'Oreal the film on YouTube, you can go see it. And
amazing.
That what that looks like, thank you, is what it feels like. It feels great. It feels like you're part of a hive mind, and it feels really special.
So last question from me. The Hourglass version of Phantom Whims is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I think you guys do a really good job of reinterpreting it. It sounds like almost a new song, but in like a really good way. It's like a really fresh sounding version. So is this going to be, you alluded to it before about a new record. Is it going to be a new record of reinterpretations, or is that just a one-off?
That's something we're just kind of going to do along the way. Like those happen naturally because we write songs, and we usually, a song has to be pretty defined, like riff wise, for me to start writing lyrics. And then when I'm writing lyrics, I switch a lot from listening to the demo, playing electric guitar, to just picking up an acoustic. Like the change helps me work it through. And so almost all of the songs that we've written in the last 10 years, I write an accidental acoustic version when I'm writing the lyrics. Like I have a demo that sounds a lot like the version that you finally hear. Sometimes it is the version, but without the vocals, depending on how the order goes. But I pick up an acoustic too to like check, like, can I just play this? I want it to just I want to be able to pick up an acoustic and at least the emotion to work. And if that works, and that's what kind of makes, one of the things that makes us is like, we could just release stripped down versions and that could be the band, but we like all this other stuff, which probably doesn't help us because everything else we like is less popular than just the acoustic pretty stuff. But so there's a lot of versions like of that song, like late Bloomer. The first song was a super heavy song. And then when I finally finished the lyrics, the song was recorded and I played it for Nate in one of the studios we were working in. He was like, that version you just played is the most powerful version. We need to throw it all away and we need to just record that and then re-record the whole song around it, which we've never done that before. We did it for a couple songs on this record, which was, we took our time. There's no rush. We've been a band for so long. Might as well do what we want. And so there's a lot of other songs on this record and on previous record that have an accidental version. And so what we're doing for this is like, I sort of accidentally have a version I play. And then basically for these first, we did that one. And then we've already done a Heavy Heart one. It's not out yet, but it will come out. Like literally me and Nate sat down for an hour. He grabbed whatever instrument felt good to him because he can just write stuff. He's so talented. I've cooked this version over months on accident. And then like for Heavy Heart, for Phantom Limb, I played and then he picked up another acoustic and did a weird tuning. And then in an hour we had the version and then we recorded it like in 2. It's the opposite of L'Oreal. We recorded it in 2 and then he mixed it and that was it. And then we recorded the video in like another hour and a half. Just trying to be able to release that stuff whenever we have a hole in our release schedule. So what we're looking for is to build up another full length with all original new stuff, but to use these like Hourglass versions, thinking about, flipping it over. And obviously the Hourglass from Yet and even from the new record is like kind of an image of ours. And so just as a way of like shaking the songs up. So, and we also, shameless plug, we also have a Patreon who is the wind beneath our wings and really supports. I mean, if the label and the Patreon together mean we can do it. If they both didn't exist, we would have to stop. They really support us. We have a lot of other acoustic versions that have been released only to the Patreon, and we will be doing that more in the future, as well as additional content for L'Oreal. The future film, as well as you get more updates, all that other whatever. But so the acoustic version thing is something that we never overcook, and we can just do.
That's great. So
awesome.
We're going, Tyler.
Kind of as a last question for me as well. I mean, kind of building off of that, obviously, like you said, y'all took your time with L'Oreal, kind of building on that. And like you said, you have those Hourglass versions and stuff like that. And so throughout that entire, recording, writing, whatever you want to call it, throughout that entire process of L'Oreal, what is something that you learned as a band even after 2 decades, what is something that you learned as a band that you will be taking with you as you continue to work on a new album and continue throughout the rest of your all's career?
That's a great question. We all went through some pretty heavy stuff. I mean, and the whole world did in that season. And so just continuing to be reminded that like the relationship we have to each other is one of the biggest privileges of the band and one of the most important things, taking care of each other and getting to spend the time. It's really just a great excuse for us to be together. That's one thing that comes to mind. I mean, there's a mantra in my mind is a lyric from Make Believe, which is open hearts and calloused hands. And that's a really important lyric to me, that like for all the things that have changed in my heart and mind and all the other guys. And again, we're all different people with different stories. That I know I'm supposed to keep my hands calloused and my heart open. Like I'm supposed to stay at it and try to keep my heart from growing callous, but keep my hands callous. And so that message has really stuck with me as like an idea that has been a guiding star and like what it means to be faithful, what stuff, there's especially, growing up in pastor's kid or an MK or whatever, everybody grows up and you don't know what you're doing. You just believe people around you. And we're all in the process of figuring out how much of it is bathwater and how much of it's baby and what to throw out. And so that's been a good North Star to trust of like, I just got to keep my heart open and my hands callous, keep busy and like the truth will continue to unveil itself and I'll be patient with myself as I'm always learning and always in process. That one sticks out to me as like a lyrical line. And as far as the writing of it goes, like we literally like, just like every other record, it was like the moment and we feel good about it. But it's like, right as we started writing this new record that's not even close to completed, me and Nate and Tanner were talking. We were all like, we can't do the L'Oreal thing again. Not because we shouldn't do it again, because we already did it. Like we're going to not overcook these songs. We're not going to think too long. This record's going to be, we're going to pull the trigger quicker. And not because the last thing was bad, but because we just did that. So open heart and callous hands. That one sticks with me as like a super important thing to keep with me and keep kind of tattooed on my heart.
Beautiful.
Well, this has been, for me, it's been fantastic. So really appreciate your time, Aaron. Is there anything that you want to let fans know or what they can look forward to in the future?
No, I mean, like I said, L'Oreal, the film is out there on YouTube. It's 5 songs off that record played live. It's totally worth watching. I got to produce it with my partner. Very proud of it. There's a new Phantom Limb acoustic song if you like our acoustic stuff. And we're writing and recording right now. We have a Patreon and we're just super thankful to everybody, to both of you guys. It's an honor. Thank you for being patient with me. It just means the world. Absolutely. When you write a song and you put it out, like it's like shouting into the darkness. And it's just such a privilege and an honor that anyone cares. And you're both enablers. You're part of the reason why we'll keep going. So
absolutely.
No, thanks a lot. Awesome. I say this every interview as well. It sounds unlikely from what you've been saying so far, but have you ever toured Europe or the UK?
I want to. We haven't yet. We've had a couple almost times that we did, but if it ever was able to work out, we want to do it so badly.
Ah, cool. Because I'll definitely come and see you.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
Absolutely. And to everyone on Sputnik listening to this and eventually reading the transcript that I will put out there, please go listen to My Epic if you haven't already. Literally, you could just go throughout their entire discography, find whatever sticks to you. They got a lot going on their music stuff, and so definitely go give show some support, show some love to them, and thank you guys for listening again. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Super big honor. Thanks for staying up, Simon. I appreciate it.
No, honestly, it's been a privilege. I've enjoyed it. It's great.
Good night, guys.
See you later.
You.